I will commence the process set out under our Referendum Act, and I will go to Parliament and propose that the British people decide our future in Europe.
Brexit. 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 Brexit has been a hot topic, but what does it actually mean? So the word has become a short way of saying the UK leaving the EU, merging the words Britain and exit, so there you have it, Brexit. So what is Brexit all about? Aside from it probably being one of the most political events in our life, it's an EU referendum. Referendum meaning a general vote on a single question. So what is that question and when is it going to be voted on? Should the UK remain a member of the EU or leave the EU? And the voting date is set for the 23rd of June 2016. Now there are two camps fighting to convince people whether to stay in or out of Europe. Now let me cover the main reasons why I believe that on the 23rd of June you should vote to stay in Europe. Trade. The EU is a single market in which no tariffs are imposed on imports and exports between the different member states. In fact, 50% of our exports go to European countries. Just let that sink in for a minute. 50%. So not only do we have a single market between Europe, but we could also benefit between trade that Europe makes with the rest of the world, like the planned EU trade deal between the US and Europe. President Obama told the BBC himself that an EU trade deal is a priority for the US, and that if the UK was outside of Europe, it could take over a decade for a UK trade deal to come into being. You don't believe me? Watch this.
I think it's fair to say that maybe some point down the line there might be a UK-US trade agreement, but it's not going to happen anytime soon because our focus is in negotiating with a big bloc, the European Union, to get a trade agreement done. And UK is going to be in the back of the queue.
See, I told you so. Out-campaigners like UKIP leader Nigel Farage believe that the UK should follow a Norway-style system to get access to the single market and all its benefits. He thinks that the UK would be able to pick and choose and benefit from all the single market advantages and at the same time get to decide its own regulations. Mr. Farage, stop deceiving the people please. If the UK was to actually join a Norwegian-style club, it would still be bound by virtually all the regulations. And instead, by being out of Europe, they would have no say in any of the regulations coming up in the future. Investment. London as we know it, you know, as the world's biggest financial centre, well, it would lose most of its significance if it can't be portrayed as that gateway to the EU for international banks and businesses. We don't have much industry in the UK as it is, but if we were to leave the EU, there'd be a real threat for factories and business plants to close down. Because businesses would close down since they would be unable to export their goods back to Europe tax-free. Mini, for example, is owned by BMW. Do you think the Germans will keep the Mini production plant open in the UK if they have to pay tax to bring their own cars back into Europe? All of these things will directly impact 3 million jobs in the UK, which are all linked to EU trade and investment. And talking of jobs, it's because of the EU that we have guaranteed holiday pay, maternity leave, and increased protections at work. Are these things you really want to lose? Security. With Islamophobia on the rise, and these recent attacks that took place in Paris and Brussels, Vote Out campaigners have been using this opportunity to capitalise on these events and say that we must leave the EU in order to keep the UK safe and secure from future terrorist attacks. You know, since all these Syrian refugees are terrorists and are going to come to the UK to cause terror. It's all propaganda. I'm not sure out campaigners understand that the UK is safer by being part of Europe. It's through the EU that we exchange criminal records, passenger records, and actually work on counter-terrorism. We all need the EU. to fight terrorism. Plus, the UK is not even in the Schengen area, we're an island. We need to strengthen our own borders and keep them secure and keep the UK protected, but we can do all that by staying in the EU. Immigration. Now this is the big one, and it's the one that the No campaigners love to focus on. All these immigrants taking our jobs and benefits. Well, for this segment, I thought I'd get a well-known immigration expert on to give his opinion on it all. Some of you may know him through the radio or his MATV immigration show. It's none other than Mr. Harjap Bhangal. So, are all these immigrants really taking all our jobs and benefits?
Well, not really, not from what I can see. No person comes from the EU to come and claim benefits on purpose. In France, the benefit system is 3 times more generous than the UK's one, so surely they'd go to France if that was the case. This is where we need to concern ourselves with the facts rather than get confused with myths. There's more Britons living abroad claiming benefits than there are Europeans coming to the UK claiming benefits. That's a fact. It's a big myth in that respect that EU people come and claim benefits here. The other big myth is that they're taking our jobs. The jobs that I see them doing labour jobs, which are manual jobs, cleaning, waitressing. I mean, even at Asian weddings, yeah, the waitresses are European. Now what does that tell you? Surely Asians would recruit Asians, right? But it doesn't work that way. So as employers, if you go and ask any employer, they will tell you that immigrants are hardworking, they're more loyal, they're more likely to stick around, they're less likely to create a fuss, and they can just get on with the work. Therefore, there must be something there. I always say, if a person who's only been here 2 weeks, doesn't speak your lingo, hasn't got an education in your country, right, can take your job, you need to up your game. If we get rid of all EU citizens, what jobs are going to become available? What, the waitressing ones, yeah, the builder ones? These are the jobs that were there anyway in the first place and that the EU migrants filled. Blowing out somebody else's candle doesn't make yours shine brighter. If you blow out an EU migrant's candle, doesn't mean that job is going to go to you and you're going to start getting loads of money. But if you want a good job, you're going to have to go out there and get one. I will tell you one thing, when times are hard for any country, the first group of people to be blamed are the immigrants, if you look at history. And that's a dangerous road to go down.
So when referendum day comes, who are you going to vote for? Stay in or get out?
I'm voting to stay in.
Britain's place in the world. Brexit will result in the country giving up its influence in the world, turning back the clock and retreating from the global stage. Those of us who are actually critical of Europe have a duty to stay in Europe, fight for it, and actually democratize it. We should use the anger that we have about Europe to actually demand checks and balances instead of just wanting out of Europe. On the 23rd of June, it all comes down to this. One person, one vote. This is potentially the biggest voting decision of our lifetime. Let's make sure we are on the right side of this decision. Vote to stay in Europe on the 23rd of June. Inquilab, power to the people.